Hello everyone, I welcome you all to a new mod playthrough and today we are playing What Spring Feels Like. Monika always felt like home, but homes always came with problems. This one began in the smallest ways. Spring. Makes sense considering the mod is what spring feels like. She forgot things at first. Simple things, tiny details that slip between the cracks of her normal and meticulous memory. Didn't think anything of it when she missed the exit to her shared apartment or mixed up the time for her dentist appointment. He joked that her writer's brain was too cluttered with half-finished drafts, tangled metaphors, and stubborn plot knots to remember earthly concerns like dinner plans and laundry schedules. She smiled, tired but amused. I let the jokes pass like she always did when she was trying not to admit something was wrong. We didn't see it clearly until the tremor started in her hands. Not the kind that came from cold or caffeine, but the kind that lingered. That seemed to snake up through her bones and ripple through her fingers, like they didn't belong to her anymore. She dropped a glass one morning. We both watched it shatter on the tile floor, and she stood there as if she couldn't quite understand how it had happened. You swept the piece away with your heart beating faster than even, pretending not to notice that she was staring at her hand like it had betrayed her. Then came the appointments, the blood work, the scans. We waited together in rooms that smelled like antiseptic and quiet dread, where the walls hummed and the lights felt too white, too clean, too cruel. You held her hand as the doctor said the words neither we had expected. Neurodegenerative, rapid, terminal. It had a name, a long, ugly one, but it didn't matter. All you heard was the countdown. You are going to lose her. You are going to lose Monika. And the first thing she did, once the shock began to fall, was apologize. She said it with a cracking voice and her hands clenched into fists, as if her body failing her was some personal offense. You couldn't hold her hard enough to convince her otherwise. Her spine remained stiff as steel. Even while she shook you in your arms, she whispered, I wanted to grow old with you. I'm sorry. You never hated a spring morning more than that one. Summer. By the time the days grew longer and the sun settled over her home like a golden, heavy sigh, everything had changed. She could still walk, but her balance had grown unreliable. The stairs became a mountain and doorways seemed to narrow every week. She cursed under her breath when she knocked over a glass of water. She slammed drawers when she couldn't grip the utensils right. You learned how to help her without hovering, how to offer a hand without turning pity into poison. It was getting harder and she knew it. Her pride had always been part of her power. The brilliant girl who never needed help lifting a box, who fixed the leaky faucet herself, who out-argued engineers and professors twice her age with a tired smirk and biting wit. Now she lets you carry her to bed when the tremors are getting bad. Now she lets you wash her hair with hands that then shake like hers. She hated that you are learning how to love her like this. Slowly breaking, silently retreating, becoming someone neither of you recognized. But there were still days when you caught glimpses of her fire. When she could talk for hours about stories she would never finish. Or when she sketched with her hands guiding hers, murmuring, it's not mine anymore, but it's still here. You kissed her every morning like it might be the last, but you never said it, never out loud. The illusion of normalcy was fragile, and neither of you had the strength to shatter it. She took up sitting by the window, sketchpad in her lap, eyes following the movement of the sun through the glass. You joined her in silence, your hand always near hers in case it needed steadying. Still, she made you laugh. Still made you feel like the world was ending. She would whisper something sarcastic under her breath as the hospice nurse gave her medication. Her eyes slid with that same old spark as if daring you to remember who she really was. And you did, but it was getting harder. Autumn. The leaves began to change around the same time her speech began to slur. At first it was subtle, she would pause mid-sentence, searching for a word that had always come easily before. Her tongue would trip, her lips moving slower than her mind. She'd grimace and wave it off, pretending she hadn't noticed, but you always did. You noticed everything now. She used to love autumn, the shifting colors, the scent of wood smoke in the air. The way the air felt like it was preparing for something sacred. We would walk together every year, crunching through leaves and stealing sips of cider from each other's cups. Now the walks are gone. She couldn't make it past the porch. You brought autumn to her instead. You filled the living room with gourds and cinnamon candles, made her tea with too much honey, wrapped her in old flannel blankets and held her while you read out loud. She never told you to stop, even when her eyelids fluttered, heavy with exhaustion. Some days she still spoke clearly enough to cut you open. This isn't living, she rasped one night as you helped her into bed. This is dying slowly with better lightning. You clenched her jaw and tucked her in tighter. If it's all I get, you said softly, brush a lock of hair from her forehead. I want to die with you too, just slower. She didn't answer. She just looked at you with a kind of tired ache that made her stomach twist. By the end of the month, she could no longer hold a pencil. The sketches in her book became abstract. You kept every one. And when you cried, you did it in the shower or outside behind the shed when she couldn't hear. But she couldn't hear. You're afraid that if she saw you break, she'd stop fighting. Or worse, she'd start preparing you for the end. Winter. She couldn't sit up on her own anymore. Her body, once so agile and precise, had betrayed her completely. Her eyes remained bright, but everything else had quieted to stillness and falling breath. The hospice bed took the place of her own in the bedroom. Machines hummed, monitors beeped. You hated the sound of regulated death, but she didn't want to die in a hospital, so you let the machines stay. You let them count for her, breathe for her, measure the shrinking boundary between life and goodbye. You sat by her side through every hour. You held her hand, now frail and thin skinned, as if it might disappear if you blinked too long. Whispered memories like lullabies, filling the quiet with pieces of her own story, so she wouldn't forget where she had been. One night, near the very end, she turned her head to you. It took her everything, but she did it. Her voice was almost gone, but her eyes still burned. Do you remember? She said, the words slow and slurred. The first time you kissed me. You nodded, swallowing past the thickness in your throat. In the rain, outside the art museum, you were shivering, and I said you looked like a wet dog. She smiled weakly. And you kissed me anyway. You rested your forehead against hers, brushed your nose against the cool skin of her cheek. I'd kiss you again in every storm. There was a long silence after that. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Her fingers curled weakly around Giannis, her eyes fluttering closed. I don't want you to be alone, she whispered, after. You shook your head, tears slipping down your cheeks. I'll never be alone. Not really. Not after you. She smiled again, faint and crooked. She looked peaceful. Her chest rose once, then silence. A silence so heavy you thought the world itself had gone still. You pressed your lips to her knuckles. You stayed with her. You stayed until the warmth left your hand. You stayed until you couldn't feel your own body anymore. You stayed. You buried her in spring, the season she hated, the season that stole her name, and before you left her for the last time. Your knees aching in the dirt. You didn't speak, you just rested your hand against the cold stone where her name was carved too neatly too soon. And in your mind only the faint smile that kissed her lips like a ghost as she took her last breath filled your thoughts. It finally hit you. Monika always felt like home. And now you'll never feel what it was like to be home again. What spring feels like. Written by ASN. All that's what spring feels like. Now, I believe it's time for us to rate the mod. Alright, so time to put it on the tier list. And well, I didn't have a logo for it, so this is what you get. It was an interesting mod, I'd say. The story was captivating, but on the other hand, it is not really connected to DDLC now, is it? Like, it's connected to DDLC in name only. Considering there isn't even much characterization, I will say, very nicely written, but yeah, there's not much else I can say. I'll put it here. No. I guess here. Yeah. It was, oh, oops. It was, oops. Yeah. It was a fun and interesting mod. An interesting concept. Though, as I said, not very fitting of DDLC, you know. Either way, I hope lots of you enjoyed. Press like and subscribe. I love you all. Bye bye.